I'm going to show you how you can use the saved queries feature within Active Directory users and computers. So to start, if we open up our users and computers snapping, and over on the left hand side you should see you've got saved queries. Now before we look at saved queries, normally to do a query within Active Directory, you would right click your domain and select find, and then in here you can do a search for users, contacts or groups, computers, printers, shared folders, organizational units, or even a custom search, and search for specific attributes a object will have. Now instead of manually creating these search queries each time, we can leverage search queries to save a query and then run it as many times as we want without having to regenerate what the query does. So if we right click save queries and then select new and then query, so within our query builder we can give our query a name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for inactive user accounts which haven't been active for 30 days at least. If you want, you can give it a description, or you can modify the query route. So by default, I want to run this against my entire domain. But if you want, you can narrow it down to specific organizational units. There is a flag for including subcontainers. So if you disable subcontainers and then select a specific organizational unit, for instance, my company OU, that will only search the company OU and it won't search any subcontainers within it. So I'm going to leave subcontainers ticked and search my entire Active Directory domain. Now we can move on to actually building our query. So if we select define query, the first query we're going to make is quite an easy one. As under common queries, there is a days since last logon option. So we can just select this drop down and select 30 days and then press OK. Now what you would normally see is your query string. However, because this one calculates a date, it doesn't actually show the string. But if we select OK, we've now got our query. I don't have any user accounts that have not logged in for 30 days, so mine is actually blank. So to demonstrate this better, we can right click and do new query. And then in this example, what I'll do is I'll do another query, which pulls back all of our computer objects, which have an operating system of Windows Server 2022. So again, I'll just leave the description blank. I'll search my entire Active Directory domain, including the subcontainers. And then I can define the query. But instead of doing a common query this time, we'll click the drop down and do custom search, and then under field we will select computer and then operating system, and then do starts with, and then do Windows Server 2022 and then select add. Now just an example, under the field you can search for pretty much any attribute that is within the properties of a user or a computer or a contact. All of the attributes that you can fill in there are under this field, and you can create a custom query for any of those properties. So this one, I've got my operating system starts with Windows Server 2022. So we can press OK, and we can see it has built our LDAP query here under the query string, and then we can press OK, and we can see the query has been automatically run, and it's pulled back 3 servers which have our operating system of Windows Server 2022. Now where it's got that from is if we just open up one of these objects and come to the attribute editor, there is an operating system attribute, which is Windows Server 2022, which is operating system. And then if we come back and modify our query, we can see that the query is looking for operating system, starts with Windows Server 2022. Now as a third example, we can go more in depth. So if we create a new query and then search for user account locked, so what I'm going to do is any user account that has been locked out due to bad passwords, we're going to search for that. So the way we're going to do that is if we come to define query and then do a custom search and then select advanced, we can build a custom LDAP query. Now I've got a query here. So what this query does, it looks at all of our user objects and then looks for the attribute lockout time and checks if it is equal to or greater than 1. And if it does, it will return them into our list. So we can see it's built our query string, and we can select OK to create the query, and it's pulled back 1 user account. So if we come into this user account and then come to account, we can see that this account is currently locked out. And under the attribute editor, if we search for lockout time, we can see that it has currently got a lockout time that is equal to or greater than 1. So this search query is great for if you've got, for instance, people on the help desk and people are contacting them saying their account is locked out, you don't actually have to do a search for the user account. You can just come to locked out user accounts and it will show all of the user accounts that are currently locked out. So that is a quick guide on how to set up and use saved queries within Active Directory.